Hi, so we're here at the first Habito buy-to-let meetup, and I'm very lucky to have Martijn with us, who has a very posh title of Chief Strategy Officer. And you know a little bit about mortgages, I think.
Not as much as you, but a little bit.
Okay, so firstly, perhaps you could tell us who is Habito?
So Habito is a startup of 4 years old that tries to make mortgages simple and easy, which is very far from where it is right now. As one of the more old-fashioned bits of finance, mortgages are important, so we wanted to make it easier. We started as, and still are, a mortgage broker, so we give people advice on which mortgage is best for them, which can be baffling. There are typically 12,000 mortgages or more live at one time.
That's a lot.
So helping people choose is an important thing. We do that for free. And since last year, we've also made our own products because we felt there were some products missing. So we make our own mortgages in buy-to-let.
So you're also a broker and a lender?
We're a broker and lender. We're the only one in the UK that does that. We always give advice over the whole market. In the pockets where mortgages were lacking, we've created some mortgages to fill that gap.
Okay, so that's interesting. So for somebody who's thinking of remortgaging, is this a good time to do that? What would your advice be?
I would first say that it's always a good time to check whether it makes sense to remortgage. In the UK, typically people are on a fixed rate mortgage. If you're at the end of that fixed rate and you go into the higher rate that comes at the end of that, typically called a standard variable rate, you are very likely to overpay, and you need to talk to a broker like us and make sure you can get a better deal. Even if you're in a fixed rate, given that rates have fallen over the last few years, it makes sense to check. And sometimes it makes sense to move even in a fixed rate period. A good broker will always make sure that you have all the information and you can make that choice. But mortgages are a huge part of everyone's budget, so saving a bit of money on that is worth more than some of the other categories where we spend evenings on a price comparison website for the newest camera or to get £5 off your energy bill. This is actually usually the biggest expense for someone, so it makes sense to look at that.
And it's true, isn't it? Even somebody might say, well, 0.25% isn't that much, but over the lifetime of the mortgage, that could be thousands or even tens of thousands, couldn't it?
Yes, and especially if it's not too much hassle to move around. And refinancing is happening a lot in the UK, but there are a lot of people. The government's own regulator thinks that there are 40% of people are on the wrong mortgage. So we'd love to make that a lower number.
Wow, so that's 40% are on the wrong mortgage.
So they stay on the SVR, or they got a deal that was a bit safer for them than they needed to have. So a lot of people can save a lot of money in a question of, in our case, half an hour, but definitely less than 2 hours invested can save you a lot of money over the next few years.
And I think some people think that if you go to a broker, they do charge, but you're saying you're free.
We are free. Yeah. Every broker, we do make money. Every broker in the country gets paid by the lender. We don't charge anything on top of that to the customer. So the mortgage price, the rate and the booking fee is everything that there's to it.
Okay, so no reason not to call you.
We're open 24/7 and we love your business.
Okay, that's great. And I guess the other thing that people might want to know is, well, what are the kind of key trends this year?
Yeah, so 2020 has just started. We think 2019 was, first of all, there was a lot of uncertainty and there were very low transactions as people weren't sure whether to move now to that house close to the job or the extra bedroom for that kid you had 3 years ago. People were nervous and weren't doing much. I think there's, in the last 6 weeks, we've seen an enormous change. This could be because of the election and maybe some optimism for the new year. But people are looking at houses. We've seen a 200% increase in inquiries compared to last year. In January, which is typically not the busiest month we ever have. So it looks like people are saying, well, right, we're going to sort out our home this year, or about to let investment for that matter. So there's more transactions in purchase, which is good. Some of the other trends of 2019, I think, will continue. So there's, in buy-to-let, two things stand out. One is there's a trend towards longer-term fixed rates. So the UK, uniquely in the world, has a dominance of rates that are fixed for 2 years and become variable afterwards. Last year there was a large shift towards 5-year mortgages. I think they will continue, and we'll see more 5 years, but also 7 and even 10-year mortgages, as people benefit from both the certainty, but also you can often get a slightly bigger mortgage if you take a 5-year plus mortgage than another.
And why do you think there was the shift? Is it because rates are, I think they're coming closer, aren't they, for sort of 5-10 years to the 2-year rate?
Yes, I think one of the reasons why people like to have shorter rate is saying, well, maybe rates will fall. Base rates and deposit rates can't go much lower, but also uniquely, the rates at which banks and building societies can lend money for longer term mortgages, it has rarely been this much the same as for short term money. So you don't have to pay that much more if you want a longer term fix.
Sure, that makes sense. So, and I guess the other thing for buy-to-let guys that I talk about, they're very upset that they're losing their mortgage interest relief. So people are, I don't know whether they're automatically going into sort of buying properties within a company or taking advice, which is probably what they should do. But what are the sort of trends that you're finding from a company perspective?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So in 2014, George Osborne stood up and announced that you can't deduct all of your mortgage interest from your tax bill anymore if you are an individual. And there was a long phasing in. And it looked like in April last year, people woke up and thought, hang on, this doesn't make a lot of sense.
And they decided to wake up.
Yeah, so, and we've seen an increase, typically buying in a limited company where you can still deduct that mortgage, but it requires a bit of setup costs, was something like 20-25% of cases. And we've seen that move up to 50% of cases in the last quarter. And if you look at intent in the market, it looks like 60% of the next purchase transactions are going to be in a limited. It often doesn't, people should get individual tax advice. It often doesn't make a lot of sense to refinance onto a limited company because you have to pay stamp duty again. But if landlords that are purchasing a property tend to set up a limited company just for that purpose.
Yeah, from scratch, if they're buying from scratch.
From scratch. So we said our mortgages that we want to offer. We launched into company because we said, well, that's where we think the growth is and where products are only offered by 2 or 3 providers. So let's provide a bit of choice. Okay,
well, that's fantastic. So I think the big thing that I've learned is 40% of people are on the wrong mortgage. So if you're open 24/7 and you're free, kind of no really excuse to give HappyToe a call, I think.
I would agree enormously.
So thanks very much.